The travel industry is about to go through some major transformations, and if you're planning any trips in the near future, you need to be prepared. 10 massive travel changes coming in 2025 that will affect everyone. From stricter security rules to new airline policies, these changes could impact everything from the way you book flights to the documents you need to travel. Make sure to subscribe to stay updated on the latest travel news so you don't get caught off guard by these big changes. Number 1. Stricter entry requirements for Europe. Starting in 2025, traveling to Europe will no longer be as simple as just showing your passport at immigration. The European Union is rolling out the ETIAS visa waiver system, which means that travelers from countries like the US, Canada, and Australia will now need prior approval before entering Europe. This new system is similar to the US ESTA program and will require travelers to apply online, pay a small fee, and receive authorization before their trip. The process is expected to be straightforward, but it adds an extra step that many travelers might forget. If you show up at the airport without ETIAS approval, you will not be allowed to board your flight. This change will affect millions of travelers who are used to entering Europe without prior authorization. Additionally, biometric entry systems are being introduced at European borders, replacing the old passport stamping method. This means you may now have to scan fingerprints and have your face recognized when entering the EU. For frequent travelers, this could speed up immigration, but for those unfamiliar with the system, it could lead to confusion and longer wait times. Number 2. Airlines are cracking down on carry-on bags. Airlines are making major changes to baggage policies in 2025, and not in a good way for passengers. Many airlines have already been reducing the size and weight limits for carry-on bags, but next year even stricter rules will be introduced. More airlines are expected to start charging for overhead bin space, meaning that the days of bringing a carry-on for free may soon be over. Budget airlines have been leading this trend for years, but now even major airlines like Delta, American Airlines, and United are exploring ways to monetize carry-ons. Some are introducing guaranteed bin space fees, allowing passengers to pay extra for the right to store their bag above their seat. If you don't pay, you might be forced to check your bag, even if it technically fits in the overhead bin. On top of that, new weight restrictions for carry-ons are being tested in some airports. In places like Australia and parts of Asia, travelers are already required to weigh their carry-ons before boarding, and airlines are looking to expand this practice worldwide. This means that even if your bag meets the size limit, it could still be rejected if it's too heavy. Number 3. Hotel fees are getting worse. Resort fees, cleaning fees, and other hidden charges have been annoying travelers for years, but in 2025, these extra costs are set to become even more common. Hotels around the world are adding new fees for things that used to be free, and some are even starting to charge for daily housekeeping and early check-ins. In the US, the Federal Trade Commission has been pushing for transparency in hotel pricing, but instead of getting rid of resort fees, many hotels are renaming them and bundling them with other charges. Some hotels are now charging extra for basic amenities like pool access, Wi-Fi, and even using the in-room coffee machine. At the same time, Airbnb and vacation rental platforms are also raising cleaning fees and requiring longer minimum stays in certain locations. Some destinations are introducing new tourist taxes, meaning that travelers could end up paying significantly more than they expected when booking a place to stay. The best way to avoid getting ripped off is to carefully check the total cost before booking any hotel or rental. Look for properties that include all fees up front, and consider booking directly with hotels, as some platforms hide extra costs until checkout. Number 4. More airports are going fully cashless. If you're someone who prefers paying with cash while traveling, you might run into trouble in 2025. More airports around the world are eliminating cash payments entirely, meaning that you will need a credit card, debit card, or digital wallet to make purchases inside the airport. Several major airports, including Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, Miami International Airport, and London Heathrow, have already switched to card-only transactions at most shops and restaurants. By next year, even more airports are expected to follow this trend, including some in Europe and Asia. This shift could be frustrating for travelers who rely on cash, especially in countries where credit card use is less common. In some cases, travelers may need to purchase a prepaid airport card to use at restaurants and stores. For international travelers, this also means that foreign currency might be useless inside the airport. If you have leftover euros, pounds, or yen from your trip, you may not be able to spend them at duty-free shops or cafes before heading home. Instead, you'll have to exchange them at a currency counter, often at a bad exchange rate, or simply keep them for your next trip. Number 5. Airlines are implementing dynamic pricing for everything. We all know that airline ticket prices change constantly, but in 2025, airlines will take this strategy even further by introducing dynamic pricing for more aspects of the travel experience. This means that things like seat selection, checked baggage, in-flight Wi-Fi, and even meal prices could change based on demand. Some airlines have already started testing surge pricing for seat selection, meaning that if you try to pick a window or aisle seat during peak travel times, you could be charged double or even triple the usual amount. Similarly, the cost of Wi-Fi or in-flight meals may vary depending on how many people are purchasing them. This type of pricing is similar to what ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft use, where prices increase when demand is high. Airlines are now using the same model to maximize profits, making it even harder for travelers to predict the cost of their trip. To avoid overpaying, travelers should book seats and add-ons as early as possible. If you wait until the last minute, you may end up paying significantly more for things that used to have fixed prices. Number 6. Biometric boarding will become the norm. Facial recognition technology is rapidly expanding, and by 2025, biometric boarding will become the standard at many airports worldwide. Instead of handing over a passport and boarding pass, travelers will simply have their face scanned at security checkpoints and boarding gates. Airports in the United States, Europe, and Asia have already started rolling out this system, and by next year it's expected that most major airlines will require biometric verification for international flights. The goal is to make security checks and boarding faster and more efficient, but privacy advocates have raised concerns about how passenger data is stored and shared. In some cases, travelers may still have the option to opt out, but that might mean waiting in longer lines or going through additional security checks. If you're uncomfortable with facial recognition, you may want to check with your airline ahead of time to see what alternatives are available. Number 7. Flight prices will skyrocket due to green regulations. While travel is expected to boom in 2025, new environmental regulations are set to make flying significantly more expensive. Governments around the world are implementing higher carbon taxes on airlines, pushing them to use more sustainable aviation fuel and reduce emissions. Airlines are already warning that these changes will lead to higher ticket prices, especially for long-haul flights. In Europe, new carbon pricing rules could add hundreds of dollars to the cost of flights, and similar policies are being discussed in the United States and Australia. Additionally, some airports are planning to introduce eco-friendly landing fees, meaning that airlines flying older, less fuel-efficient planes will have to pay more. That cost will likely be passed on to passengers in the form of higher ticket prices. If you want to save money on travel in 2025, consider booking flights as early as possible, looking for budget airlines, or choosing alternative travel methods like trains for shorter trips. Number 8. More countries will introduce tourist caps. Over-tourism has been a growing issue for many destinations, and in 2025, more countries are expected to introduce limits on the number of visitors they allow each year. Popular spots like Venice, Amsterdam, and Bali have already announced plans to restrict the number of daily tourists, and other destinations are likely to follow. Some countries are also raising visa fees, charging higher entry taxes, or requiring pre-approval for travelers to limit overcrowding. In Venice, for example, visitors will soon need to book entry tickets in advance, even for a day trip. In Thailand, new restrictions on certain islands will prevent large tour groups from visiting during peak months. If you're planning a trip to a high-demand destination in 2025, be sure to check the latest rules. You may need to secure a reservation well in advance, pay additional fees, or visit during the off-season to avoid restrictions. Number 9. Digital nomad visas will become harder to get. In recent years, many countries have introduced digital nomad visas, allowing remote workers to live abroad for extended periods. However, by 2025, these programs are expected to become more restrictive, as some countries tighten their requirements due to tax concerns and an influx of foreign workers. Countries like Portugal, Spain, and Indonesia have already started making changes to their digital nomad programs. New policies include higher income requirements, proof of long-term housing, and additional tax obligations. Some governments are also reducing the number of digital nomad visas issued each year to prioritize local employment. If you're planning to work remotely in another country in 2025, it's important to apply as early as possible and make sure you meet all the financial and tax requirements. The days of easily hopping from one country to another on a digital nomad visa may soon be coming to an end. Number 10. Travel insurance will become a necessity, not an option. With all these travel changes happening in 2025, one thing is clear. Travel insurance is no longer just an option. It's a necessity. More countries are requiring travelers to show proof of insurance before entering, and airlines are offering insurance add-ons to cover everything from flight cancellations to lost baggage. Many travelers used to skip buying travel insurance, but with the rise of flight disruptions, natural disasters, and new travel restrictions, it's becoming an essential part of trip planning. Some countries like Thailand and the UAE have already made health insurance mandatory for visitors, and others may introduce similar policies soon. If you're traveling in 2025, make sure to get comprehensive travel insurance that covers medical emergencies, trip cancellations, and unexpected disruptions. It could save you thousands of dollars if something goes wrong. These 10 massive travel changes coming in 2025 that will affect everyone show just how much the travel industry is evolving. From new security rules and higher prices to restrictions on popular destinations, travelers need to be more prepared than ever. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on important travel updates, and let me know in the comments. Which of these changes do you think will have the biggest impact on travelers? Safe travels, and see you in the next video.